Yes, most of you have seen me before and heard me before, maybe too much, but I'll try again. I'll try to go through some of the work that we've been doing that is not really in the operational day-to-day thing about NIX, but what we do outside of the kind of day-to-day operations to maybe look into the future and make internet in Norway a little bit more robust, resilient, and useful should bad things happen. And I will also invite you to some information about our new 100 gig pricing model. That'll be a teaser at the end. So we all know that internet is important, all of us, and I think most people in Norway think that the internet is important. There's been a lot of public work within e-com and totalberedskap, and also in the security field, saying internet is important, we need to ensure that internet is working, etc., etc. A lot of words have been written. We haven't seen that much action. But action is needed because the internet is not a pile of paper. It is actually something that is out there and working. And we hope that NIX can be a piece of the big puzzle, because this is not something done by one person or one government or one country. This is a big puzzle, international. And we hope to be a piece of that puzzle. The first step was really to get governance up and running properly. NIX has been around since 1993, owned and operated by the University of Oslo since day one. But it hasn't always been very clear for our owners, the university and the Ministry of Education, that they actually have a responsibility for the IX. This is now much more important, because when NIS2, which is in operation in most of Europe, eventually comes to Norway, don't know when, but it will. NIS1 is nearly there, so NIS2 will come in a few years, I guess. Now, IXs are actually mentioned in NIS2, and it is important to understand the responsibility you have when you operate an IX. So, based on this kind of newfound knowledge about the responsibility, we have had some more leeway to work on more than just day-to-day operations. So we have some plans that started in 2024 and will go through 2026 and probably quite a bit longer when we see how much work there is to be done. But at least that's the 3-year plan we have, is out of, well, next year as well. So we do a lot of work on what I would call regional cooperation and regional robustness. That's our priority, and we have been doing quite a lot of work. We also line up a little bit our cooperation with others. NetNod is here, thank you. And we have been cooperating with NetNod quite heavily since 2014, and this cooperation continues. The world changes, new things happen, but we will still cooperate. Because we think we can help each other. They're not a big organization, a lot of technical knowledge, a lot of experience. We know Norway a little bit better than NetNod, but together we can make a better internet in Norway as well. And we've been a member of EuroIX since 2004. EuroIX is the European Internet Exchange Association. And we're trying to use our membership there to get more information and to make good things happen, like IXP Manager is a product of EuroIX. I don't think Herman mentioned it, but IXP Manager is made by NIX, the Irish IX, kind of on behalf of EuroIX, and we're one of many supporters for it. And I think it's a good tool for small, medium-sized IXs like ourselves that don't have the muscle to build these things on our own. And for you as customers, if you're on several small, medium-sized IXs, you'll see the same tool, which might be useful for you. So I made this slide over the past years to try to put into perspective, what do we need operational for the internet to be operational? This might be well known to all of you. You might also have to think a little bit more about the real dependencies after this, but let's try. First of all, there must be some connectivity. Fiber, satellite links, radio links, some kind of connectivity. That's the basis. A lot of people think that as long as you have fiber, everything is okay. But what we know here in the audience is that fiber is only the first step of many to have an operational internet. But unless you listen to politicians, they say, yeah, we'll put some money in the fiber bucket and everything will be okay. But this connectivity must then be used to make capacity. And I think a lot of people don't understand the difference between the connectivity and the capacity, but there is a step there because pure fiber isn't that useful. You need someone to refine it into capacity. And this capacity must then be used to build networks, like most of you probably are doing. And then we have a lot of networks, but we still don't have any internet. The network operators must be able to connect as well. Now we have the physical internet that some of us nerds would like to see for ourselves, maybe no. But it was what it used to be, purely a network. But purely a network is of interest to us and not the rest of the world. We need services and other stuff on top. And one of the important services that are sometimes forgotten is DNS. And we think of DNS as a way of just resolving addresses, but it's much more today. If DNS dies, most email would disappear. Good thing, you would think, but still we need email as well. But DNS is very important. Certificates, also very important. I'll come to that in a moment. This is maybe something that we don't think of because it's just an infrastructure that works, but it is important. And exact time or exact enough time is also important. We'll come back to that as well. And of course, there must be some content and services. Without content and services, the internet is just, well, for bit transport. And there must be some data centers with power, cooling, security to house all this. We cannot do all of this. That would be nonsense. But we think that we can at least be of assistance in some of these fields. So that's where we focus our work. Someone else must do the rest, and there's a lot of other stuff. We had a small talk here earlier during the coffee break about what about the software that's running here? What dependencies do we have in software? I won't dive into that, maybe during dinner, but that's also something that, of course, must be fixed. But let's start in one corner. So I'm talking about DNS. We do have some root servers in Norway, but it has been kind of someone coming along and do you want a root server? Yes, we want a root server. Where we put it? We put it here. No real plan. So what we are trying to do now is to understand what is needed in Norway. What if the connectivity to the rest of the world is cut off or has low capacity? What do we need at home to be self-sufficient for a while at least when it comes to DNS? This is not so easy. So because there's no coordinated work really on this. So how many root servers do we need? And where should they be? Top-level domain servers? Okay, yeah, good. But which domains? We have had some data from some friends trying to sort them a little bit. This is just, it was, I think, 10,000 queries to a root server in Norway. And we see, okay, comnet, arpa.org, yeah, usual suspects. .no, yeah. .uk was quite important. .io, I think .io is some islands in the Pacific, but still their domain is important for us. And when does the important turn into non-important? We see Google, US is quite down there, but the long tail is extremely long. So deciding what is important for Norway, and maybe have an agreement within Norway that if you have an important service, you should only use these domains, would have been great. There's no such thought process even at the moment, I think. But this is something we should definitely look into. And also, how about DNSSEC? There's quite a few people using DNSSEC, but does anyone demand DNSSEC? I don't know. And also the big question about public resolvers. It's been quite popular for a while to use those large global resolvers. And do we really want to handle them, our DNS queries, for them to use in their marketing? I don't know. Let's think about it. So our goal then is to find a good, I call it, mix of DNS servers and services and put it out on several NIX locations. This work has just been started. Our first kind of server that will serve this is in Tromsø, where NetNod is putting up an iRoute and all their other top-level domains as a start. And then we'll try to build on that to have more top-level domains inside that service to be able to have a little bit more complete set of top-level domains to be served publicly in Norway. And if that is a success, we'll probably do a cut paste and have more of them spread out through Norway. So that's the DNS side. Time and sync. For those of you who have been here around these meetings a long time, you will remember that we have been talking about time and sync quite often. And it started out 3 years ago at the NIX Nord meeting, where we had a presentation about the need for exact time. And it has been a lot of work. And some people ask why, but this is in Norwegian, but I think most of you understand. There is a lot of possible use cases for accurate time. Some need accuracy on year or month or day scale. Some need accuracy in the nanosecond space, but they still need accurate time or accurate synchronization. I think there's at least one more presentation today about this topic. And what happens if you don't have this exact enough time? In the long end, you might be denied access to your software because your licenses are out of year if your clock is that far off. You might be denied login if your clock is in the future, maybe. And there might be a lot of bad things happening with logs, transactions, everything. In the 5G network, the different network operators need to be in sync to utilize the frequency spectrum fully. And if the frequencies overlap, if you know you're doing radio stuff, you know that frequency overlapping is not very good. Then all the frequency space you're using is really useless. And also in navigation, in Norway we have a lot of GPS or GNSS jamming, spoofing in the northern part, northeastern part of Norway. And I think that will be more common. We need to have some other infrastructure to distribute exact time and sync and position as well. So there's a lot of reasons why we should work on this. There was created a local task force. I think it has had 5 meetings up to now, something like that. I'm looking out for, someone in the audience knows exact, but there's been a lot of work. NetNod has been very good in assisting us. And the reason is that NetNod in Sweden have installed and operated I wouldn't say a network, but it is 6 different time and sync nodes where Swedish companies can come and get exact traceable time and sync for their needs. We don't have anything like this in Norway, but NetNod has told us what they've been doing and being of good help for us and for the Norwegian authorities in this case. So we're very thankful for that. So We're optimistic. We believe that things will happen this year, or at least we believed a little bit earlier this year, because NCOM and Justervesenet, they have some plans. They don't want to tell anyone what the plans are at the moment. We're trying. I think the report was made in June, something like that. It's still on someone's desk. We're chasing that person, but we hope that this will start moving fairly shortly, and we've put forward that NIX can serve as a distribution point for time and sync, much like NetNod is doing. And we can also do other stuff, of course, but we don't see ourselves as kind of the operator here. We don't have the competence of the people, but we're pushing to get this up and running. So it'll be interesting to see. Hopefully next year we have some actual news. I was talking about certificates. Modern internet communication is very, very relying on or dependent on certificates. HTTPS, TLS, SSL, etc. It's based on certificates. And one of the key building blocks of using certificates is these certificate authorities, CAs, and their servers for verification. So sometimes you need them online all the time. Sometimes you need them online now and then. But you need those servers. You need the CAs to get this thing to work and scale. Currently, or shortly, there will only be international operators available. And there's only a handful, I think 5 or 6, that have 99% of the market. And the low-cost option is the one that has 50% of the market. Let's encrypt, but that's another story. We used to have a Norwegian operator, Bypass, but they announced, I think, yesterday that they were withdrawing from the CA market space. I think that's a step in a very wrong direction, but well, I'm not doing the business for them. But this is something we have to be aware of. We are trying to understand this a little bit better. It's, for us, fairly unknown how robust this setup is today. How much of outages on the internet will it survive? But what we're very sure of, if you're not able to verify your certificates, your internet will not work. Whether if it's your Facebook app or a banking app or a website for a local newspaper, it will not work. So we are trying to get more information, but we see that there's not a lot of people knowing about this topic. And sometimes when you try to talk to people about it, they start running and screaming away from you. But no, we'll be working on this, and we hope to start this really a little bit more in detail later this year, because we think it's important to have this kind of infrastructure in Norway as well. Content and services. We can make content and services available, but we're not a service operator or a data center and anything like that. That's not our role at all. But we can make things available for a greater audience or a number of operators in a maybe easier way than some other ways. We've been talking about CDNs and other type of caches. We are talking about DNS and NTP, etc. And maybe some important national information. I know there's a lot of work going on in Sweden about regional autonomy, where these things are on their agenda. I don't see much of it in Norway, not on the public agenda at least, but we're pushing in to do this, and we're talking to a number of interesting parties to make some of these things happen. I talked about DNS, but the rest of it as well. So we feel that this is even more important in the regions, well, outside the Oslo area, because Oslo area is fairly okay covered, I think, since most things in Norway have had a tendency to end up in Oslo or the larger Oslo area. But we need some input what your needs are in this area. As operators, either network operators or service operators, what do you need and where do you need it? So, and that brings me along to another important thing, and that is the community, us. We've been working on bringing kind of internet folks together for a few years. Together with Nonog now, I think it's fairly successful. I hope we can continue that. But we also do a little bit more than that. Because we think it's always a good idea to know people. Our business is kind of special. There's not so many people working in it. So you can't just kind of expect to find people that has the same knowledge just by asking random people. And when things go really wrong, you need someone to talk to. You need someone to help you to get things up and running again. And it's much easier if you have met them here, had a coffee, maybe a dinner. And it's much easier to call people and ask for help. And it's much easier to give help if you know the other person. So you know it's not someone trying to fool you to do something stupid. So we also encourage these kind of meetings to learn new things. I think there's a very good agenda today with a lot of different topics. We'll all learn something today. And have somewhere to meet to talk about the specifics. So we have had, since the last NIX Norway meeting, we have had meetups in Tromsø, Stavanger, and Narvik with approximately 35 to 40 people on each. The focus have been regional robustness, but still we bring people together, we make them to talk to each other and discuss. They can be fierce competitors in their local, regional part of Norway, but they still need to cooperate to get their business up and running and be better. We do have a plan to go to Trondheim as well. We said that we should try it this autumn, but looking at the calendar, no, it'll be early next year. And the goal is the same: bring the people in the region that works in this area together, discuss primarily regional issues, but also other stuff that is of interest to people. So, and we will continue to support this meeting. I would say this year we have not contributed that much. We have 2 presentations and our logo. That's about it. So thank you to the NONOG board. We will promise to be a little bit more active. We used to be much more active, of course, but we'll be back. And we will also maybe continue with our NIX meetings in the spring. We had one in May, and we were not that many. It's partly because we were very late with announcing it, but we'll do some soul searching and see if we can do that as well. Because we believe in gathering people, maybe just a half day and informal dinner afterwards, but bringing people together just to make people know each other a little bit better. So now the final thing that I promised to say a little bit about, we've had 100 gig available on our IX for quite a while. As Herman showed, it's quite a few 100 gig ports operational. Our pricing has been set from many years ago and has not been changed, but we've had some hints that it's maybe time to do something about it. So what we have been doing is trying to look at what does the market want and what do we want. And there's a goal for us to kind of standardize a little bit and also to encourage people to have more capacity, more spare capacity, because we know that when something happens, it might be a big soccer match, it might be a pandemic, it might be something else, you might need bandwidth. And if you have it already, you can use it. If you don't have it, you have a problem. So we're kind of encouraging people to go in the 100 gig direction. So the first thing we do is, of course, the current product, reduce the price, 30%, well, yeah. We also introduce, since we like resiliency, just for a few dollars or more, you'll get dual port option, where you can have 2 ports. You should run traffic on one of them only. It's not a 200 gig option, it's a 100 gig with resiliency. And you can have it on 2 different sites in Oslo, if you like, NIX 1 sites. But it's up to you. It will be active, and you can push the traffic back and forth depending on your need. When you need it, you don't have to involve us. So we're here kind of encouraging operators to build networks with more resiliency at one single peering point. Won't fix all type of resiliency problems, but might make it more stable. And we also have an option with a 100 gig single port with a 30 gig soft cap. So if you're currently a 10 gig customer, and especially if you're in the 90% utilization range, should definitely look at this, where we put in a price which is approximately 3 times 10 gig. You get 30 gig, but there's a soft cap, no hard cap, except the line speed, of course. That's fairly hard cap. And we will look at the 5-minute traffic graphs. And if you go above that in the 5-minute average regularly, you'll have to go to a full speed deal. But we'll try to be fairly kind, at least in the beginning. A couple of examples. If you were this customer, and you see the 30 gig line is in the middle here, we would say that you're a full speed customer because you're above, your 5-minute average is above 30 gigs for significant part of the year. But if you're this type of customer, where your 30 gig is up here, we have this unfortunate spike. And we're not going to do as the power companies do that. If you have, for one single hour a year being above a threshold, you'll have to pay for that all the year. We'll say you're definitely within the 30 gig cap. So this will be done manually at the moment, at least. We'll maybe talk to NIX to get some functionality into XP Manager eventually, but this is how we plan to do this. So we hope that this will be kind of a good path forward, because we know that if you buy a new router today, getting a decent router for kind of internet type of routing with something else or less speed than 100 gig is quite difficult. So this might be a good option for people moving forward. And prices are valid from 2026, but you can order it now if you like. You can, Herman will take orders in the coffee break. No, but we are ready to supply this right now, but the pricing will be valid then for next year. So the invoice you'll get shortly, which is this year, will not be changed. There's some other changes as well. As we said, we're trying to streamline things a little bit, don't have too many different options, and we're trying to move people away from especially 1 gig, but also 10 gig. So there won't be any big changes, except we will discontinue the 25 gig option. I think it's 3 customers with 25 gig, or it was a little bit earlier this year. So it hasn't been a big success, so to speak. We'll keep the existing ports running at the current cost level for a while, but eventually we'll ask you to kind of become more modern and move into something else. But you will not be able to order 25 gig anymore. And we will also remove the discount on additional 10 gig ports. There has been a little bit of discount on additional ports. We'll remove that also to encourage you to move on to 100 gig. And one of the reasons is that our cost for a 10 gig port is almost the same as a 100 gig port, almost. So it's makes no sense for us to do discount on 10 gig ports when they're really as expensive as other ports. And we also, up till today or to this time, has been a mix of us paying cross connects, you paying cross connects, nobody paying cross connects. It has been confusing. So what we'll do now in the future is that when you're in one of the commercial data centers, you as a customer will have to order and pay for the cross connect, which I think is the industry standard in this business. We see that you might have a better price than we get from some of these data centers, and you can do it in a much more efficient way than we can. Of course, at the university site, there is no cost for cross connects. It's a patch cord this long. So it's still at no cost. And that was about it. Our website will be updated with new pricing in a day or two. I'm looking at those. Yeah. So you could, when you've forgotten what I say, you can catch up there. So yeah, that was it. And if you have any questions, catch one of us in the coffee break, and we'll try to.
Actually, there is a comment on Slack mentioning that the standby port with no traffic will not work when it's needed. And it's best to have traffic. This is in relation to the 100 gig active standby.
Yeah, maybe, but people get it to work elsewhere. So, well, I would say that we don't want people to kind of load balance and then end up with 55% and 55% utilization, and you get it into one port and it breaks. We want people to keep the main traffic on one port. If you have a trickle on the other, so be it. But we don't want people to, as people do on if you have two power supplies into a rack, you load both with 80%, and what happens when one of them fails? The other one fails as well, of course. We don't want that situation. So, but we'll be kind to people. So, yeah. But the intention is to keep it as a spare, and of course you must check that it works so that it works when you need it. But still, that's the main idea. There's one arm down there. We can take one question from the audience, I guess. The question was, how do you expect customers to do switch over from 100 gig to another? We will not be involved. From our part, it will be two separate peerings into the fabric. You have an IP address on each of your peerings, and you will use BGP to move your traffic wherever you like it. And we should most definitely not be involved in that process. Okay. Yeah. Well, could we take it in break, or is it of interest for everyone today? Well, the question is, if you have two links, 200 gig links on the 1+1 option, and you loaded them both with 40%, I would say that your design is flawed, because if you use 80% utility on a 100 gig port, that's not good. So, but I understand your question. We will be kind, but the idea is that you're not buying 200 gigs, you're buying 100 gig, but you have a redundancy option, so you can move traffic back and forth. And as I said, put most of it in one, have a trickle on the other, just to make sure it works, and then you can move traffic as you like. We will not be very hard on at least not in the start, to kind of judge people or cut wires, but we will encourage you to use this wisely as a resiliency, redundancy option, not as a more capacity option. If you need the capacity, buy two links. If you need the redundancy, you can have this as an option. Okay. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much, Kjetil.